So my name is Jessica Jowdy. I manage our healthcare sales engineering team. I'm also a part-time actor from this morning, for anyone who was there. Really excited for you all to be here. I have the smallest role of today, which is just to introduce my colleagues here. But we're going to spend this presentation really split in half, talking first with Barney, who I'll introduce in a second, on their usage of data fabric at the University of Utah, and then Benjamin DeBow will follow us up with some more product-specific information about how we're growing our data fabric. So this is going to be the end of my conversation. I'd like to introduce Barney. He is the Senior Director of EDW at the University of Utah. He manages a team of about 35, oversees a team of about 35 individuals working on everything involving their Oracle EDW, Caboodle, ETL work, API integrations, and everything in between. A lot on his plate, and he has some really good information on how the data fabric is going to be used at the University of Utah. So I will turn it over to Reed.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be here. This is data fabrics, data warehouses is what I've been doing for a long time. So we're of course the University of Utah. Okay, yeah, we're University of Utah Health, and we're an academic medical center, of course, and very kind of positioned right in Salt Lake City, and most of our patients, the majority come from that Intermountain area, but there's also, because we're the only academic medical center in the region, we get a lot of patients from the surrounding states as well, and kind of are the main teaching hospital in the area, things like that. One of the things that for notoriety that we have is we've been consistently ranked in the top 10 in quality in the nation among academic medical centers for the last 10 years or more. And much of this is actually due to the quality and consistency of our data. We've been able to use that data to figure out where our gaps are in quality, and because of that, we're able to target certain areas to improve the quality of care. And so that's just one of the many things that our data warehouse has done. One of the things about our data warehouse that's pretty unique, I think, is that we've had a data warehouse since before data warehousing existed. And so my colleague here, Jim Livingston, he's our CTO. And back in the day, he started our data warehouse. So as many of us do, we all stand upon the shoulders of those before us, right? And he had a vision that there needed to be a centralized location to get data. At the time, he was working on or involved in some of the HL7 movement within the organization, and decided that, look, we need a repository where we're just going to send all the HL7 to be used for research, data requests, etc. And so our warehouse started out as somewhat of a real-time data warehouse, and this is back in the late 90s, so quite a while ago. And since that time, we've gone through multiple EHRs, homegrown, some failed, a lot of the EHRs. We've been through Cerner, and we're currently an Epic shop. So the whole time we've had the same data warehouse. So you can imagine how we've had to organize the data to keep it consistent across all that time. So a lot of work, and a lot of that vision that he had has really taken us a long ways. So before data warehousing, you had your source systems, right? From EHRs to ERPs, financial systems, whatever they may be. So way back in the day, and even in the current day, your people who were trying to do reporting or data analytics had to go to those source systems, grab some data, go to the next source system, grab some data, combine it in Excel somewhere, like a one-time event, get some number for their leader or whatever it may be. And it was a very time-intensive and resource-intensive event, right, to try to do any kind of analytics in that way. And so this vision of having a centralized data warehouse is so huge, and is a really big deal. Okay, so since the late 90s, we've had this centralized data warehouse, and ours is similar to most. So you end up with bringing most of the data in on some kind of frequency, whether it's real time or some of it's batched daily. And we bring it in kind of raw, and then we do further processing of it to create refined data marts. And then those data marts are attached to all of our analytics tools, and the analytics teams are able to, of course, build their analytics and do all kinds of cool things. Some of the things that we've done, in addition to the things I mentioned before, is we've done costing. So we were one of the first institutions in the nation to do actual facility costing. And so we know how much a knee replacement costs, and we can even differentiate between different surgeons and look at outcomes based upon those costs. And we call it value-driven outcomes. So it's kind of outcome focused, not just cost focused, but you can see whether the outcomes are worth the cost and that kind of thing. And there's a multitude of other things. As you can see in this analytics portal, there's dashboards galore, reports galore, predictive analytics galore, all kinds of stuff. Struggling with okay. Well, to color the story a little bit, over the last few years, things have changed, okay? So we no longer just have a centralized EDW. With our Epic EHR, they have their own Clarity. If you're familiar with Epic, they have their own Clarity system, which a lot of people try to use for data. And off of that, they build Caboodle, which are sometimes analogous data marts to the ones we've been using for 20 years. We have a big data environment, natural language processing, a bunch of collaborative networks like I2B2 and PecorNet. We also have a predictive analytics system that kind of homegrown that we use with using R server. And so all of these things begin to fragment our EDW. These are become other sources. And our attempt to kind of corral this and keep them all within a centralized location has led to ETL ad nauseum and a lot of data movement all the time. And so it's been somewhat disruptive for us. And this is where we kind of begin the search for, like, what's the next thing? And to make matters even worse, data democratization. So anyone with Python and a machine or a server can essentially build their own shadow data BI environment. And I'm sure many of you are dealing with this, and you have very little control over what's going on. It increases security concerns, governance, all kinds of things. So we're starting to become more siloed, whereas we had been very centralized in the past. And to, where do I need to point this? I'm getting rid of that. Sorry. So about this same time, we had a new CIO come in, and her name is Donna Roach, and she had this vision that we needed to do, it was time to do digital transformation because healthcare was about to be hit by massive changes when it came to digital stuff. And in fact, digital transformation was going to lead out and enable healthcare. And you think about, this was 2019, 2020 or so, and inevitably within very quickly we had COVID and virtual care, and within a year we had AI jumping, coming on board, and so this has really been prophetic in many ways. This digital transformation that has to occur. Well, as you can see, one of the key components to this digital transformation architecture is the enterprise data warehouse in our institution. The hope is that can be the backbone of our data and help enable us to be able to do interoperability, not just interoperability with other healthcare systems or outside systems, but especially internal interoperability amongst the systems that we buy or build. Okay, so that leads us to our search for our next centralized warehouse. So as we begin to try to figure out how we were going to deal with this fragmented EDW, we started to look at data virtualization companies and how we might lay a virtualization layer over our data and over our different warehouses to once again have a centralized warehouse and have that one warehouse concept that all of our analysts know where to go to get data. It's all governed centrally as much as possible, and it is one source of truth, right? Data engineering is done as much as possible centrally. Data silos are minimized, and anyway, what we ended up doing is, after some amount of time and playing around with some different vendors, we ended up taking a look at the Smart Data Fabric from InterSystems. And this all started out started out before that, but we had a kickoff once we had gone through the contracting process and everything. This happened last December. And this kickoff, one of the things that we did in this kickoff is we kind of evaluated. It was a 3-day kickoff. We had Jess there with us and a few other people, and what we were trying to do, we were really trying to kick the tires on the Smart Data Fabric. We knew what it was conceptually, but we wanted to actually get in it, build, do a bunch of work, do bunch of POCs. So we came up with about 10 different use cases. And so we split the team up into 10 small teams, and we had this nice area where we all had our own little conference room and split up. We had some games and food and sent everyone off for 2 days. And we had poor Jessica and her colleague Emily running back and forth between rooms the whole time, helping people. Well, they did like a 2-hour, this is the data fabric educational session to start with. And then after that, we just sent them off, and everyone started building as much as possible, and they were running back and forth helping, and it was a bunch of craziness. At the very end, on the 3rd day, each team had to present what they had done and what they had built in the data fabric, and it was pretty fascinating, the things we were able to do just in those few days, and it really kind of jump-started us, got us on board. And as you can see, there's so much more here than just a data virtualization layer. We ended up looking at fire projections, which, on top of our warehouse, fire consumptions, we get real-time data out of our EHR. HL7 parsing, we still have a lot of HL7 coming into the warehouse. And the virtual EDW, which the data virtualization. We are also trying to replace some of our file exchange functionality, so we were looking at that. We were looking at doing maybe some simple ETLs. We also took a look at the InterSystems backend tables for like alerting, reporting, and understanding what's happening. Looking at web services to enable some of our applications and administering InterSystems. We had a team just figuring out how to actually grant permissions and do all that kind of stuff. And then just using the data fabric. So we had a team that was connecting up with SQL tools and analytic tools trying to use it. In the process of this POC, we did find a couple of gaps that we felt were there that would prevent us a little bit from going full on board with the data fabric. When you are looking at a data fabric or data virtualization, there's various points at where you are able to tune for performance, right? So data fabrics are essentially a virtual layer that you're pointing to either a source system or other databases. And if it's not tuned correctly, sometimes it'll try to pull too much data up. It'll be super memory intensive, and it'll take a long time. And so one of the things that we partnered with InterSystems was a new method of foreign tables, which is one of their data virtualization pieces in the data fabric. We partnered with them to build out a new type of foreign table, and this type of foreign table would essentially bypass the data fabric and push the work down to the source system as much as possible. And so that was something that we requested to kind of increase and improve performance, and they have been the greatest partner. For those of you who worked with InterSystems, their customer service is fantastic. They immediately got their engineering team working on the problem, and we are just barely finishing up testing of it, and it's working out beautifully. So we're getting started on some of the next steps. Some of the new capabilities that we have with the data fabric are, of course, the FHIR capabilities, web services, hopefully less ETL, more real-time data. And then, as I mentioned, internal and external interoperability between systems. One of the new ones that we just are super excited about with our researchers, for those of you who know, researchers often need de-identified data, and they're trying to siphon it off and do whatever they do with it, right? It's very scary unless it's de-identified. And so one of the very new products that InterSystems is working on is a transformation from FHIR to OMOP. And OMOP is somewhat of a interoperability data framework for researchers. And so we're excited to kind of start to partner on that and take a look at that. And most of all, it really is hopefully going to give us a bunch of flexibility as we start moving towards the cloud and modernizing our data warehouse. We are able to move systems and things around beneath the fabric without our customers having to know what's actually going on, because they'll still be pointing to where they need to point to. So next steps, we're going to be working on these POCs, turn them into actual projects, build out our virtual warehouse, our one place for people to go, and start to build out all these cool interoperability pieces. So it's been exciting. I'm going to turn the time over to Ben. He's going to kind of go through some of the roadmap of the data fabric and whatnot. If you have any questions for me, we can tackle those afterwards.
Sure. Thank you so much, Reed, for having us in Utah, and also for being willing to present your story. It's very helpful, I think, also for the audience to hear from people who are going through that journey, to hear what it actually means in practice, rather than just see the PowerPoints that we drum up. But with that, I'm going to show you some of that PowerPoint nonetheless. I'm going to whatever. So. A little bit about the InterSystems roadmap that's relevant to data fabric. I will, just to kind of ground our thinking or kind of reset the definition of a data fabric, just a few comments on how we look at that, what we would define as a data fabric, and why we think that InterSystems IRIS is a great platform for delivering it. Then I'll talk a little bit more about relevant pieces of our platform roadmap, platform technology, some of which Reed already alluded to, that we developed in partnership with University of Utah, and then branch out a little bit to a service perspective. So what does that mean in the cloud, and what does it mean with respect to our cloud strategy? But first and foremost, what is a data fabric? So this is my layman's term, my layman's definition for a data fabric. It is about making sure that the data consumers on the right-hand side have access to the data on the left-hand side on their terms. So if you're a data analyst that wants to use a BI tool, you want to be able to get flexible SQL access that is fast for your analytical queries. If you are a data scientist that needs a one-off export in a Parquet file format, that should also be possible. And neither of those two personas needs to care for a second about how the data is structured there. And I think this applies very well to the situation with the fragmented data sources that Reid was describing, that just as you evolve as an organization, as there's more consumers, there's more stakeholders, it starts to get more complicated, and it's very hard to uphold such a carefully crafted centralized data warehouse. And that's exactly what the data fabric is trying to address, making sure that your consumers can have one point to access the data sources without having to worry too much about the specifics, one of which could definitely be a data warehouse, could be, or a combination thereof, like the caboodle and the other examples that you gave. So is the data fabric relevant? I should have maybe included the hype cycle from Gartner, but I chose this clip from a recent poll that they did, research, in which clearly illustrates how relevant this pattern is. So a data fabric is not a product; it's an enterprise information architecture. So enterprises will implement it for their environment to span their data architecture, their data sources. And as you can see, 2/3 of enterprises consulted are actively looking into or deploying a data fabric environment. So I work at InterSystems in product management. There's a part of my job is marketing. So that's why I will claim that we have a smart data fabric, that you could always add some more adjectives. So you may have seen this diagram before. And what we try to illustrate is how many capabilities are actually available in our platform to enhance your data fabric, to make your data fabric more powerful and make it do smart things. And to outline just 3 of those, or the 3 main differentiators that make a data fabric delivered with InterSystems possibly smarter than the others, are embedded analytics, a single data plane, and faster time to value thanks to composability. So what does that mean? The embedded analytics is, as you may have seen on the previous slide, there's quite a few analytics capabilities in here. If you go to the textbook definitions of a data fabric, they look at analytics as a consumer of the fabric, but we shifted that left. We moved that upstream, and we make sure that the analytics components are available as part of your data fabric technology platform. So that increases efficiency. You can push more work closer to the data, and it reduces the risk of mismatches. A single data plane. We heard about HL7 messages. We heard about structured data. I'm not sure if you're also working with sensor data, but that's yet another totally different data type that requires a different type of storage. So it would be inconvenient if those would require very distinct technologies and repositories to store those. With InterSystems IRIS, you have a multi-model database that enables you to store the data in its native format and be able to keep it in that source format without having to copy it and synchronize it between different materializations. And then finally, having that ecosystem that not only includes data management, but also analytics and application development components, that makes it easy to quickly deliver additional applications. And in the keynote presentation this morning, you saw some examples of that, including the Data Fabric Studio that Mike Holm presented together with Jeff Reid. So just briefly branching out a little bit, was anyone in Jeff Reid's session that was just before this, just next door? Okay, not too many. Okay, for you might hear some repetition here, but I wanted to just repeat some of the themes that he talked about at length in his presentation of how generative AI can enhance or interact or improve your data fabric deployment. So there are 3 main use cases or usage patterns for AI or generative AI. The first one is better operations, is using AI to analyze your existing flows and see if they can be optimized, if there's resource utilization optimizations that can be leveraged. So that's really a purely internal kind of thing. The second one is productivity. This is also what you saw in the keynote with the development co-pilots, the DTL assistant, where you leverage generative AI to help develop your data flows, to help develop your your application code to help develop your analytical components. And then the third category of use cases is about improving the user experience. This is also something you saw that us present about this morning in the keynotes, the assistant in Data Fabric Studio, all of the wonderful things that Don and Alex and others showed in the healthcare part of the keynotes. So really bring those conversational user interfaces to bring them to life. So that's also a very relevant enhancement for data fabrics at large. Okay, that sort of to share more about our vision for data fabric and smart data fabrics. Now a little more about the technology that we offer to support this. One of the most important parts of the data fabric store is our data onboarding capabilities. When we say data onboarding, we mean making data available to work with inside IRIS. So if then your fabric consumers connect to IRIS, they can get access to that data. And we offer a choice between connect and collect options. For connect means we leave the data where it is, and this is where the foreign tables capability that Reed mentioned is coming in. So the data stays where it is. It's managed by some system that probably does a great job at managing it, and we don't want to interfere with that. We just want to project that data into IRIS and make it available there such that it can be used as if it were a regular table. And then with load data and the underlying infrastructure, we offer commands to collect data. That's an alternative choice that you can to really ingest the data into IRIS with high efficiency driver technology. It sounds like, well, this is a distinction that you need to make up front. Yeah, architecturally, you need to make a choice between either of those. But we have implemented them on the same infrastructure, which means that you get the same configuration surface, the same options and flags. If you can project it, you're literally using the same configuration settings as in the case where you choose to load the data. So that's something that enables you to actually postpone that choice and quickly flip-flop between them if you find that is there's a, for example, the foreign tables are queried so often that it's more practical to have a local copy and the synchronization isn't that much of an issue. So those would be cases where you can quickly change tack and you don't have to kind of reinvent the wheel in terms of configuring that flow. So there's two pushy strategies that I wanted to talk about that Reed already mentioned earlier on. So there's push down and push through. I'm not sure if that's official industry slang, but for us it is. So pushing down means, in the context of foreign tables, if you ask me a query, I will look at the pieces of the query that pertain to my foreign table, and then I will check, is the remote data source where the data is coming from, is it smart, is it a database, or is it a file? If it's a file, we can't really push any work to it. But if it's a database, there might be predicates, there might be where clauses in your SQL statement that we can push down. In the 23.1 release, we started off very cautiously, but the infrastructure allows us to gradually push down more and more work, and we have, based on the feedback from Reed's team, already identified a couple of opportunities. Some of those are in the 24.1 release, and we continue to look into more opportunities. And then the second one is the specific use case that Reed described. That's push through. In the push through case, what we're doing is we're not yet defining a foreign table. We're still kind of exploring the possibility of defining one, but there's a small chicken and egg kind of situation there in previously. So while you couldn't quite browse the remote data source until you created the federated foreign table. Federated tables are something different. So this is what this push through statement is for. So that's a new command that we introduced that allows you to just indicate a foreign server, so a remote database that you want to send a query to, and then you pass in a select statement. And if you notice, this this function is an Oracle hash function. We don't support that in IRIS. So you could actually, in the rare cases where SQL dialects differ between different vendors, anything that comes after the through commands with the name of the foreign server can be the remote server syntax. So that helps you kind of quickly grab the data, check if the data has the format that you want, and then you can wrap that in a foreign table. The foreign table can be based also on non-IRIS syntax. But this command kind of nicely isolates the non-IRIS pieces such that it is reasonable for us to implement without every 5 minutes change the parser to support this or that weird thing. And as Reed mentioned, it's been a very collaborative process, and his team is currently evaluating an early access build that we're making available, and we plan to release this probably with the 24.2 release next month. Wanted to just give a shout out to the online learning team. They're not just good at setting up Oscar awards as they did last night, but they're also really great at developing learning content. So there's a really nice video that explains the workings of foreign tables. And then just a couple more data fabric related improvements that either have just been implemented or are in the short-term pipeline. So first, on the ingestion side, we are obsessed with performance. That means that every release, there's going to be some corner or some piece of the platform at least, and often multiple pieces where we increase performance. In the 24.2 release, that's going to be ingestion into columnar storage, where we've sort of offloading some work to the client, increasing overall throughput and performance. On the transformation side, we keep making headway with DBT. DBT is a data build tool. It's an open source component. They also have a cloud offering that is, well, not free. We have an adapter, the DBT IRIS adapter, that helps you leverage DBT on IRIS, with IRIS as the target. It is the T in ELT, and it allows you to simplify data engineering tasks into just writing simple SQL statements, and then the tool will then mash those together and efficiently execute those in your target platform. So that's again pushing the processing to the data, and their approach, their project structure, etc., facilitates a lot of best practices such as documentation, lineage analysis, and whatnot. Another thing that if you attended Gokhan's presentation earlier this afternoon next door, you might have heard about is a data catalog experience. So the idea of a data catalog is to be able to catalog your data assets and be able to navigate those assets efficiently. But there's more and more opportunities to incorporate inside of your catalog usage information, detailed data distribution information, and other organizational lore that helps you build a new way to interact with your data with recommendation systems, with deeper integration with text to SQL or conversational assistants. So that activated metadata story is also something that we intend to work on, and hopefully we'll have more news about later this calendar year. Generative AI, you might have heard the word vector search in the background from next door. My colleague Tom is presenting our vector search capability there, if I'm not mistaken. I think I heard him. But anyway, so we continue to enhance that. We have some indexing strategies in the pipeline, some deeper integrations, like the things that you saw Alvin present earlier this morning. So quite a few exciting things ahead there as well that will enable those use cases, such as what I showed up earlier and what you may have seen in Jeff's presentation before. And then the data services component. So this is to just give a little more context on how a data fabric kind of, what that means in the cloud. Well, it means exactly the same. The data fabric does not, the data fabric is all about abstracting the physical location, the physical shape, or the storage formats of your underlying data sources. So it's a perfect fit for deploying in a cloud environment. So that's why it also fits in our cloud vision of delivering smart data services as composable applications, so components that you can assemble into an application. In my comms demo, you saw a great example of that with Data Fabric Studio, where you have a business scheduler component that's combined with a data onboarding component that has these staging, validation, transformation steps. So that's a great example of the type of composable applications that we can deliver with this. So easily composable services is what I just mentioned. Another important component of our vision in the cloud is that we want to make sure that customers that are, or many of our customers are extremely efficient in leveraging the scalability components of IRIS. We've got systems with tens of thousands of power users constantly online and hammering the system, which is very different from web systems where you have just occasional visitors. So that scalability has always been terribly important to us, and we're working on translating that efficiency into the cloud, because if you can do it with less resources in the cloud, that means immediate costs benefits. And then finally, differentiated, that is leveraging industry experience, obviously in healthcare, but also increasingly in financial services. You heard my com in supply chain. Maybe you attended Mark Holmes' session earlier this afternoon, as much as data-centric services. So what does our cloud services roadmap look like? More industry offerings. You saw on Scott's slide this morning a couple of the things that are in the pipeline or are actually have just been released. Example of what has just been released is the Cloud Document Service. My colleague Stefan Whitman had the kind of kickoff launch session about that earlier this afternoon, if I remember the schedule correctly. I did mention scalability, so we are working on making that sort of something that is very easy to control, how many resources are allocated to your environment, and making that a very smooth and automatable allocation process. And then finally, an enterprise tier. So right now, our industry offerings are, they actually are in an enterprise tier, but we want to refine our offering a little bit such that there's going to be an option for a simple developer tier where you can just test the service functionally. That does not have all of the overhead of super high performance IO, super high IO storage, all of the advanced networking. So there's a developer tier, a departmental tier, and an enterprise tier. So we sort of aimed very high with the initial releases of our cloud services, and we're going to make it more easier for you to right-size your investment to accommodate your needs. Data Fabric Studio is an example of one of the new releases in this cloud service area, and is being presented, or probably they're also wrapping up just next door. Talking about wrapping up, this is sort of the content that we wanted to share. To close off, I wanted to just highlight a couple of the areas in this Smart Data Fabric picture where we have innovations either introduced in the 24.1 or .2 release, or coming up in the next two releases. So as you can see, we're very busy bees, and the fact that there are two boxes which I didn't highlight is sort of more to for the color composition than anything else, because there's always some small bits and pieces happening across the stack. And with that, I want to kindly invite you to use the app to submit your feedback. Based on your feedback, we can make this conference better, and we can make sure that it addresses your interests and your questions. With that, I would like to open it up for questions. We've got about 5 minutes left, so if you have any questions for Reed about their deployment of the data fabric or the overall architecture at the University of Utah, please. Jim?
I'll come.
Right. Yes, that is an excellent question, Jim. Thank you. I'll repeat the question for the sake of the recording. So the question is, will foreign tables replace linked tables? That is our goal. So linked tables are a feature that has been around for a very long time. They came about in different flavors for ODBC and JDBC sources. They don't support file sources. The particulars of what is supported for JDBC and ODBC strains are slightly different. So it's a complicated matter, very tricky bug reports that we get every quarter, one or two of those. So with some of the enhancements to the SQL engine that we've introduced in the last couple of years, we found that we had a much better infrastructure to build a replacement for it. So with that replacement is foreign tables and the new XDBC gateway server that sits underneath. That is also available for programmatic access. So we have actually concluded the early access program last month, and I have a survey that I promised to send you in our conversation yesterday, but a little survey with more questions that we sent to all of the EAP participants to listen for what they would still like to see in foreign tables before they can confidently move from linked tables to foreign tables. There's a couple of things that we're not going to try and reproduce, most typically the bugs, but also is read-write access relevant to you? Is object access relevant to you? Those are things that we're very eager to hear. So if you're interested in sharing your feedback, please tell me, and I'll happily write your preferences down.
I have a follow-up question. So on you talked about bringing the table into IRIS. And I got the impression that your table is going to be very static. In our application, we replace the contents of that table every single night. So if you're indexing or if you're doing optimal performance on that thing, is your expectation your foreign table is going to be static, or is it going to be changeable?
Foreign tables only store metadata about what you're going to query. So it only stores the how to access the remote source and what to expect there in terms of columns, because you need that in order to write a SQL query. So it's always going to be a live query right now. So there's no right now foreign tables do not cache anything. We have that as one of the roadmap items that's in the survey, so you can give that a priority. But that will as soon as you start caching, you gotta say some sort of a time to live or some other criterion by which you need to indicate how long you think your cache should last. So that's a level of complexity that we want to make sure we have some future users to talk to before we define how that should look. But by definition, right now, foreign tables are always live, always real time. So it's not going to be last night's data, it's going to be today's.
Will the linked tables go away?
We have no intent to de-support linked tables. We rarely remove functionality from the platform, as I'm sure many of you know. We just encourage you to migrate, and we also plan to offer some tools and utilities to automate that process going forward. Any questions for Reed?
I have a question for Reed. Hi. So Reed, a data fabric, the concept of it can seem daunting, right? Because it's a whole kind of architectural shift. So what's your recommendation for kind of breaking it down into digestible chunks that produce kind of like an ROI as you go?
Our approach is to not bring everything that we have in the warehouse in there to start with. We're going to kind of work in the kind of a proof of concept and bring in key tables from a few different sources and turn it over to one of our analytics teams that we partner with a lot, and they'll be very favorable to giving us good feedback. And so we're going to kind of start small, partner with them, and then we'll expand from there. So just really taking one bite at a time.
So who's building a data fabric tomorrow? Should see many hands now. All right. Well, what are we at? Minute?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming to the session. See, I had the easiest job. I just had to begin and end. But if you have any other questions, we'll be sticking around. Please look for other Data Fabric sessions. And thank you for coming to the conference. Thanks, everyone.